This video is going to show you a solo flawless grasp of Avarice dungeon during the season of the Risen on a Titan. For those that want to see that, then skip to the timestamps. Other than that, I can show you my setup, etc. So, when you do get the solo flawless, you'll be rewarded with this emblem if you've not done this yet. The Piratical ambitions, this is what you'll receive. In terms of our setup, as I said, I was on a Titan. So this is what we run on Sentinel. We have Talon Barricade, Shield Bash, rather than the other melee. I always went with this one, a bit stronger for this. Vortex Grenade, that is your best nade you want to use for this. Aspects are Offensive Bulwark, Controlled Demolition. Fragments are Echo of Expulsion, Echo of Undermining, Echo of Leeching, Echo of Remnants. So Echo of Leeching gives you health regen off melee kills. Echo of Undermining debuffs enemies. Those are the key to fragments. To be honest, all these fragments are really good. Now you can go with Bastion if you wish. I just went with Offensive Bulwark because it plays to the playstyle of having an overshield quite often, which I'm going to have that because of my setup. We pair that with the exotic gauntlets, the Symphoceps, which buffs melee range, and while you're surrounded, you get a buff to super damage and melee damage. These are insane for this, so I highly recommend these. There are other loadouts that you can use, but this is just what I went with, and I never took them off. In terms of weapons, I used a Kinetic Sniper. Use any Kinetic Sniper that you want for the start, and then after that, you just want a Blind and Nade Kinetic Grain Launcher. I just went with Ignition Code. This is the best one I have. We're using a Fusion Rifle, Cartesian Coordinate. Any Fusion Rifle will do you. Any one that you like using. I just use this one because it's got 4 per weapon on it. And then we're using the exotic sword, the Lament. This is key critical to the run, and has now became a higher tier weapon for the dungeon. I'll explain for this particular dungeon. I'll explain that in the run itself. Armor mods is a Lucent Blade build, right? So we got Lucent Blade Outreach. Outreach gives us the secondary stat. Greatly increases the charge rate of your equipped swords. This is critical. Overload Grenades works on all enemies in the game, so we had that on. We've got Charged Up. We have Melee Wellmaker, Elemental Charge, and Supercharge. So that means Supercharge gives us 2 additional stacks. And then Charge Up gives us 1 stack. That gives us 5 stacks total. You get 5 stacks total. Which means we can have our Lucent Blade last for quite some time. Mod wise, we've got double solar arc resist on, but we do switch off and have a void resist and a concussive dampener for one of the fights. Other perks, it doesn't really matter so much, just make sure you got your ammo finders on and your sword scavenger on. That's critical. And obviously run double special. Do not run a primary. You are inhibiting yourself if you start to use a primary in this dungeon, and I'll explain that as well in the run itself. That's the setup that I used for this. So as we start the run, we'll have this opening encounter to do where we just need to clear a lot of ads and get 60 riches, I think it is, and then deposit them in the crystal. Your first goal is taking out this solar wizard as soon as you can. There's a fallen sniper to your right. You can take out the sniper if you want. You really don't need to. You just want to spawn kill all the ads from the cave. I believe it's 60 riches in total that you need. I think it's 60 or something. To deposit in the crystal to then, start the next encounter. One thing is the ads won't spawn if you sit in that cave, so you need to get out that cave for the next wave to spawn. It'll tell you the bottom corner when that happens. There you go, more foes are coming. It's just a case of spawn killing a lot of these ads. I'll use my bubble. That's one thing I forgot to mention is I'm going to be on Ward of Dawn for the majority of the dungeon. I only ever switch off it once, but mainly I'm on the bubble, not shield, not the Sentinel shield. Just clear any acolytes, and it's just rinse and repeat. So what I just want to say is, I was positive for COVID the other day, so I'm not the wellest of people right now. I was super ill yesterday, not as bad today. So I might miss some things in the run. That's just because I'm not obviously not feeling the best. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at it. The run itself isn't bad, but the commentary won't be as good as maybe it usually is. But anyways, that's the first encounter done. And it's essentially taking out the Shrieker. This is why we've got the sniper on. There's 2 Shriekers that you're going to have to deal with for the first section. Just down this little box, just 2 shots. Any kinetic sniper, doesn't matter. You could use your blinding grenade launcher, just the problem is it's so slow because you keep closing up the Shrieker if you use it like that. Get it nearly halfway. These ads are all a skip, so you get your overshield. And then just run past all the ads. This section's just your maze. Now for most people who've done this dungeon last season will be used to the maze, exactly where to go, what levers to push, because like there's booby traps everywhere, which is actually a cool thing. But if you know where to go, just skip ahead to the Ogre fight. If you don't, then you can watch this section. Now, season upon season, you know that I do the dungeons every season because the sandbox slightly changes. You know, each season. That indirectly affects how dungeons are completed, especially solo. Now, for the most part, there isn't big, massive changes. Not so much like, let's take Shattered Throne. Shattered Throne, season upon season, is very similar to completes every season. Prophecy, very similar as well. However, this dungeon, right, once Particle Deconstruction went, last season, this dungeon's way tougher. It's way tougher than it used to be. And you notice that as well when you're LFG in your team. People don't know what to use in this dungeon. They're very confused. Do I use Sleeper? Do I use a sword? Do I use Parasite? What do people use? Do I use Galley? Galley's probably your best bet team-wise. Probably Galley with 2 legendary rockets. But for the most part, people are confused because it was Particle Deconstruction. Obviously, fusion rifles were king. Sleeper Simulant, Divinity, stuff like that was king. But now, that's different. And for the solo wise, it's hugely different. It makes the bosses 4-phase. Now a 4-phase on the fights are very long, right? To 4-phase the Ogre, it's not too long of a fight, but 4-phase and the final boss, the captain, whatever the captain's called. 4-phase and that fight's a long fight. So you want to try and free phase if you can. That's why we're using the exotic sword, the Lament, which is going to be your best choice, I think. I've tested linears, and you still struggle to get the damage in. So this is why I went with the Lament, and I went on a Titan, just because, just to change up. I haven't run much Titan stuff lately. This is another reason why I got Shield Bash on, because it allows us to do the skips very easily, because we've got that extra distance when we do our shoulder charge. Clear out these dregs here, and then the solar wizards. Now sometimes the solar wizards can fall down, just depends. Use your fusion rifle for that. That's why I've got a solar fusion on. Doesn't really matter though either way. At this point you can take the sniper off and put your kinetic GL on. Let's go for the levers. Just be careful if you're weak like this. This is what I was saying about the Echo of Leeching. Echo of Leeching helps you get health regen on any kill, whether it be charged, melee or uncharged, which makes it really deadly with Symphoceps, because Symphoceps one-shots all adds in this dungeon. Not orange bars, but the red bars certainly, which is very useful. And the Shield Bash is very useful, as you can see, for ad clear and stuff. That's why we went with that. So now we'll just go for the cannon. Now the strat here is to keep hold of the cannon, right? So you get 10 shots in the cannon. The cannon is a vital mechanic to the boss fights, especially the Ogre one coming up. So we may as well use it. It's a cannon for free. It actually means that you get 2 cannons for free. If you do this, it means that first 2 phases, which is, we're going to free phase this Ogre fight, as I said. So you only need to get your last cannon, really. So this makes it super simple. So don't drop the cannon. Take it with you. It won't despawn. It'll only despawn if you drop it for long enough. Eventually it will despawn. this is where you want to also change your resistance mods. Now the Ogre, the boss, does Void, so you want to have on Void resistance. I also recommend Concussive Dampener. You could go double Void, but having the Concussive Dampener helps out when the boss stomps you, which that's going to happen when you are using Lament on the boss. So we'll just quickly switch our mods over. See, the beauty of having a Void chestplate on is that you can have all 3 mods on, Arc, Solar or Void. At any point you can just switch. So Void chestplates this season in particular are the way to go for pretty much everything that you use, and because you've got access to all mods and you don't have to change your chestplate, so that's really nice. So as this fight starts, you're going to have 4 acolytes. I don't like to use these acolytes for their riches. I just don't like to use it because it just screws up the whole rotation, because each room that you take out, each room that you open, you have a wave of adds. Now, it's 25 riches that you need to take down the boss's shield. Now, if you take the 4 acolyte, and then you get 14 from one of the rooms, that's 18. Then you maybe only need 7 riches from another room. But if you get more than 7 on the last phase, say you get 30 riches total, you're screwing up your damage. So I don't take the acolytes. It really screws with the rotation. What I prefer to do is this: try and get the right amount of riches, because if you get more riches than what you're needed, you lose out on damage. You have 30 seconds. It is exactly 30 seconds of damage to the boss. So if you still have riches, you need to wait at that crystal until they're gone. If the boss damage has started, if you're losing 5 seconds of damage because of that, that's huge. That's a lot of time wasted. So count your riches. I'm going to do 14 and then 11. That will give me my 25, and then I can do damage and I won't lose time. That's the biggest thing. Now what I'm going to do here is wait for the Thrall, because there's Thrall that spawn. They're independent. They spawn on a timer. Whereas obviously the rooms, they are opened up by the cannon, which needs to be fully charged. And then what I like to do on this room is grenade super, because you get your super back, and then I have my grenade back notice. The reason why I have my grenade back is because whenever you pop a bubble, it restores your ability energy like that. So I grenade both knights. It clears out everything. The 2 grenades, each side clears out all acolytes. Now remember I said I wanted 11, I got 12, that's fine. You know, that's not a problem. But if I had more than that, then it would be. I'll come to the crystal. There's another wave of Thrall. I'm going to use the cannon. Notice I'm not dropping the cannon. I'll pop a bubble when I've deposited. I'm waiting for the boss. Wait for the boss. He does it. He's done his arms in the air. Then we'll grenade, and it's all Lament damage from here. Notice I had 5 stacks. Charge of light. That will last the entire damage phase. It's 5 seconds per stack. So I'm going to have enough time for the entire damage phase of the damage bonus. Now I pop the bubble. The bubble's purpose is just to... There isn't much purpose for the bubble, if I'm being 100% honest, but we don't need Sentinel Shield either. The Loosened Blade will give us all our damage that we need. So the bubble really is just to assist with staying alive certain times. That's really the main purpose of it. You know, because the bubble's 35% damage bonus. And the... I can't mind if they actually nerfed it. I think it's still 35, but Loosened Blade's 35%. So the Loosened Blade's enough damage basically to get our 3 phase. Now when you're going into a room where you don't have a grenade or something, use your melee or blind them. I've got blind and nades on. But look, here I can just run around the room. I don't even need to drop the cannon. Okay? I can just basically melee all the adds because of the damage I'm getting. It's so easy this, because if you do drop the cannon, as I said, it eventually does despawn, which can be a pain if you need to, you know, get another cannon. You know, you just waste your time a little bit. Well, 14 riches. As you can see, the rooms are pretty simple on the Titan. But with you being able to one-shot everything and get all the health regen off them, then it's trivial. at that point. You can survive really easy. Watch when you're fighting the Ogre as well, when you're running past the Ogre, because of his void damage. Make sure that whenever you're going past, you're going to the next part of cover. Always be running to the next part of cover. Don't leave yourself exposed with this Ogre. He melts. Even on this difficulty, he will. So I was worried for my ammo at this minute in time. You need to make sure, if you're going for the free phase, that you have max ammo. Which this is where the double special comes in. Because I've got double special on and the sword ammo finders, I will have a higher chance at getting heavy. There is no purpose of a primary in this dungeon, whether you're on a hunter, warlock or titan, because there's always abilities to sort of get you around that, or blinding nades, or fusion rifles. And plus this dungeon is a high requirement for damage on bosses, so having heavy is critical when you need it for each phase. Sometimes a little difficult when you're shooting the cannon from here. It's not quite hitting in the center. Once you get the 52k damage though, it's done. So grenade, super. Get my grenade back, grenade again, and then controlled demolition just takes them all out. Really simple. So this fight's just rinse and repeat from here really. There's nothing much else to sort of tell you. The main thing is that you don't drop the cannon, because not for too long, because if the cannon despawns, the game will respawn in a Vandal with a bunch of Fallen. They can respawn when you're doing damage to the Ogre. If that happens, there's a chance you could die if the Fallen Vandal keeps hitting you with his Scorch Cannon, which is gonna happen. So to avoid that, I keep the cannon until the very last second, then I do damage. That stops the Fallen Vandals spawning in. Right, so now we damage again. Notice that I jump in mid-air, I do a short hop, then I do my Lament. It just depends, but generally that's what I do. The Lament has ground tracking and in-air tracking. The in-air tracking is stronger than the ground tracking. You are therefore less likely to miss your heavy attack. If you miss your heavy attack, you're going to lose on damage so much, and you probably won't pre-phase. So it's so critical that you know how to master the Lament. Now there is people that said that, oh, what's the best damage for Lament? 3 light, 1 heavy, 2 light, 1 heavy. None of that stuff really matters so much. I've tried doing the 2 light, 1 heavy, and then maybe 3 or 4 light, then 1 heavy. It all equals out to the sort of very similar. The main thing is that you don't miss the heavy attack, and that you have the Banshee's Wail times 9. As long as you're hitting all your sword stuff and you have the Loosened Blade on, you will do enough damage. Okay? So you don't need to sort of micromanage exactly how you're going to do your Lament combo. The main thing is that you keep an eye on that recharge rate, and you're doing your heavy as much as possible. So if you want to go with the 2 light, 1 heavy, sure, you do it. Whatever suits you, but just make sure you don't miss that heavy attack, which can happen if you're on the ground, because sometimes the attack will just go past the Ogre. To be fair though, they fixed Lament. Lament's much more consistent now than what it was at Witch Queen. Witch Queen, it was broke. Launched Witch Queen, you couldn't use it. We're back now to what it was previous season, basically. You can't do certain sword flying with it, but who cares about that, right? I don't want to sword fly with this weapon. What I want to do with it is I just want to use it in dungeons, nightfalls, and I want it to be effective. I can't care less if it doesn't sword fly. It's not meant to sword fly, okay? It's meant to do damage, it's meant to do good damage on barriers. That's all I want it to do, and it's doing it well. Especially with the Loosened Blade. We'll just clear out the remaining of these acolytes. Make sure that you're stacking your charge of light. You need times 5. Times 4 at the very least, you can get away with it, but get your max stacks before you start damage. Always remember to check. Always remember to check that your riches has disappeared before you leave the crystal. because if it doesn't, it will wipe you when you're doing something else, if you're nowhere near the crystal. So you always check that riches is gone and that you have time, your max charge of light before you start damage. And also Thrall. Now the timing of the Thrall, I like to take out a wave of Thrall before the second room. Then I go and do the second room. By the time I've done the second room, there will be another wave of Thrall. I take those out before DPS, meaning that when he gets the damage, there's no Thrall. Nothing to interfere with me. And that is the biggest thing, I think, with that. Whereas if you don't do that, the Thrall may spawn mid-damage. So just remember, did you take a spawn of Thrall out or not? You know, if you didn't, maybe wait it out. But just remember, you haven't got all day. Obviously, there's a timer there. We've got 11, which is right, because we dunked 14 before. We'll bubble, and we'll sit in our bubble until our Ogre damage starts. As soon as it starts, lead with the grenade. The grenade will debuff. So the debuff of the nade will stack with Loosened Blade. So that first 2 cycles of damage with Lament will be massive damage. Get it all in as much as possible. The reason as well why the bubble isn't that useful is because I would have to go back to the bubble to re-up on Weapons of Light. That eliminates having to do that, because time is everything. Right, if I've just got a mobile buff, when I mean by a mobile buff, I mean that buff goes where you go, then that's fine. I can do all my damage and I don't lose any time. A bubble, unless I pop the bubble on top of the boss, I won't have Weapons of Light. Now there's RNG with the Ogre. The Ogre might back up to the stairs, he might go all the way out of the bubble. So the bubble's not really needed for much, just mainly for surviving on the crystal and stuff. And as I said, there's no point going the shield, but like there's no point going banner shield. You don't need it for the ads, because Simceps does everything. So it's like that. The super's not that really useful. The build itself does all the work. So this is the Sparrow section. Now make sure you pull out a good Sparrow. If you want to use the exotic Sparrow, use it. But if you don't, use the Sparrow that you see here. Solstice Sparrow from 2 years ago, I think. It has the perk where it adds de-aggro when you Sparrow past them. The key is not to rush this. Now I'm going to use blinding nades here. What you'll see. So on B, I'm going to use blinding nades just to stop the ads from hitting me. Then respawn a Sparrow. Capture B. And the point of the matter is the timer doesn't start until you start to the timer, what I'm saying is, you get more time if you do it like that. Right, so you've got time to go to the... You've got 5 seconds here. So I've got 5 seconds. I don't have to go on that play right away, because I'm not going to get more time for the next checkpoint. So... blinding them on B and C is really critical. A is not too bad, but on B and C, blind them with your Kinetic GL. Then I'm going to go to my left portal. Then go for D, and that's pretty much that done. So now with the next encounter, it's the Fallen Shield. So the Fallen Shield encounter is pretty basic, and there's not much things that can go wrong. But if it does go wrong, it goes wrong really bad. But for the most part, it won't, as long as you follow all the steps. So I'm just going to make my way there. I'm going the wrong way, I think. I haven't run this dungeon in forever. Yeah, it's the other way. I'm going to stay on the same build, use Lament with everything. A good recommendation is to go on Thunder Crash, because you can Thunder Crash to all the different islands without having to use the cannon. So that's really good to do that, but again, it's up to yourself what you really run here. It doesn't really matter. If you want to use Wrist Runner, you can, because all the ads do arc damage, but this build that I'm using is more than enough to survive everything, to be honest. It's not really difficult at all, this section. It's just a time sink. That's all it is. It's RNG as well, where the servitor. So you need to look for the servitor. So I'm looking now. Where's the shielded servitor? Where is he? So I can see he's top right, I believe. So I'll move this cannon 3 times. I know that from experience. We'll pre-charge the cannon and release obviously when we get there. So it's top right. If I was on Thunder Crash, I could just Thunder Crash up there. I tried actually jumping up there. Now I could have used Lion Ramparts, but I just couldn't really be bothered honestly switching to it at the time. I was unlucky not to get that, so I'll just use the. You can climb up the cliff as well. I remember that you can do that. I'll just use the cannon, just for easiness. I don't like interfering with the cannons too much, because if you come back to this island, you've got to remove it back to make sure it's in the right position for the bomb. Because that's what happens with this if you aren't aware. The servers turn into the bomb. To do that, you need to dunk 20 riches, so I have to kill 20 ads, to remove their shield, take the servitor, and you get the bomb. It's a very cool encounter. We've seen nothing like this in terms of encounter design, so I do like it. I just think it's more of a time sink. It makes more sense on the master difficulty when there's champions there, I guess. But even then, that's kind of annoying a little bit, because then you've got to match the whatever season it is, you've got to match Overload to that. So I don't know what they could do to sort of spice this section up, because it is a little bit of a time sink, and you just want to get to the boss fight. But at the same time, the day one experience of doing this dungeon on this encounter was very interesting. It was actually really fun doing day one, but I think this dungeon overall, it hasn't been out long, this dungeon. It feels like it's been out a long time, but it hasn't. You know, it hasn't been out very long, and already people sort of a little bit fed up with this dungeon, because I think the dungeon's fine all the way up into the final boss. The final boss is good. The problem with the final boss is that there's too many riches requirements. Now for a team, it makes a little sense. 60 riches for the team. That's fine. That's 20 riches each per character. I think that's fair. But for solo, I don't think it is. I think it's too much of a requirement. Especially because of how tanky the boss is. You only get 28 seconds. Now I've actually timed all the numbers. You get 28 seconds to damage the captain. Right? That's not a lot of time if you compare this to other dungeon bosses. Other dungeon bosses, you get way more time than that. The Ogre fights 30 seconds. So for some reason, captain's 2 seconds less. Which is a bit harsh in my eyes. So, this dungeon, even though they said that dungeons are catered to solo players, it isn't. I think this one is designed more to be farmed in a team than it is to be soloed, because I mean, I've only solo flawless this 6 times. I've literally done it for the videos, but I don't come on and do it for fun, not like I would for Prophecy. I love to run Prophecy a lot. I would run that every week. If someone said to me run it every week, I would, you know. So it hasn't got that sort of longevity with this dungeon. We'll see what next season's dungeon is going to be like. I'm hopeful for that. This dungeon was high on the day one clear, the week one. It was an amazing sort of thing, but after that it lost its steam pretty fast as opposed to other dungeons. Even though you can farm it and stuff. Don't get me wrong though, the master farms are really interesting with the armor. That was amazing, but I would like to see all that armor for other dungeons as well. But you'd have to obviously give them a master difficulty. So with the bomb, just make sure that you don't allow it to fall off the map. If you allow it to fall off the map, you're going to have to deal with an extra servitor on a separate island. The servitor will not respawn on the island that you are on, so you're going to have to do an extra island. So don't allow it to. Now there's certain islands that are safer than others because there's these banisters, right? There's fences and stuff, but some of them don't. Some of the bombs can literally just roll off the map, and it can be annoying if that happens. So just take your time. You got plenty of time, 1 minute and 30 seconds I think it is, to deal with the servitor. You know, once the bombs start, this timer doesn't start until you actually take out that servitor. So Another thing that you need to check on this is there's 20 riches to dunk, but there's more than 20 ads. So there's going to be riches on the floor after you have killed the servitor. You could accidentally pick up a riches, be dealing with the bomb, be sidetracked, and then before you know it you wipe because you didn't dunk the last riches. So you need to pay attention to your riches debuff after you've dunked your 20, because there's gonna probably be still ads alive and you're gonna kill them and they're gonna still drop riches, and that could wipe you, and that could be kind of silly if it does, so make sure you don't let that happen. I'm just going around punching everything just because of ease of use. I'm not even dropping the cannon, right? I'm not even dropping that because I'm going to use it soon anyways, so I can just literally just run around, because sim steps will still work obviously whether I have a cannon in my hand or not, right? You can even still shoulder charge like so. So that's why I've always kind of liked the Titan run on the grasp. Time for the most part's always been probably the best, I would say. Warlock medium, and then the Hunter Warlock sort of very similar. But the Titan's always been sort of the strongest just because it's got weapons of light and stuff. But as of now, I haven't ran them all the characters. This is the first one I'm doing this season, really. The Shanks don't drop riches. I'm not 100% as to why that is, but they don't. Always check that your cannon's lined up. I actually moved the cannon and didn't need to. That's fine, we'll realign it. We're good now. Follow the orange pipe if you don't know where the charge is. You can just single fire it as well for those. Now, the fourth servitor shield is always an island at the bottom. That is not RNG, that is something that's always the case. It's one of the starter islands. It's either this one I'm on now or the one at the very beginning. So this jump I can't make on this particular class, so we're going to move the cannon over. If I was on Thunder Crash I could have made it, but that's fine. We'll just, as I said, I wasn't too fussed at optimising it, just because I wasn't really feeling the best today anyways. I was just wanting to get a grasp run done, because this season's nearly over. Which is kind of like wild, because it feels as though this season has just started and it's going to be over. Since we've just come out of a season that's been really long, right, and then we're on this season that's literally going to end in a couple of weeks. So I feel as though, I don't know, people might think this is unpopular, but I think why do we have to sort of why don't they maybe stagger like the launch of Witch Queen and seasons, so you just get the launch of Witch Queen and then you get the launch of the season a couple of weeks later, because what ends up happening is that the launch of Witch Queen, there's too much to do for one person, and if you say that that's not the case, that's probably you're somebody who has more time than the average person. The average person does not have enough time to do every single triumph, every single raid completion, every single dungeon, every single this, that and the other in the first 3 to 4 weeks of Witch Queen. On top of that, you've got a seasonal thing going on in the background. It's too much to deal with, because what ends up happening then is you don't get to play as much seasonal stuff as you wanted. Then when that season ends, you're then into the seasonal content drought, where you're just getting short bursts of content. So we get everything all at once, and then when we get to the second season of the year, it starts to really slow down, and then the third season even slower, and then the fourth season you're then just waiting for the next expansion. So I feel as though, why can't they just separate seasonal content and major expansion content separate, rather than have the season play alongside an expansion like Beyond Light or Witch Queen? Have it separate. Have the two, have it so that they're staggered somehow. Work some sort of system out, because it would spread out the content a bit better, in my view. I know there's not a huge big thing with Season of the Rising. You know, I don't think it's a super strong season when you consider it. The only reason why it feels so good is because of Witch Queen being so good itself. the Witch Queen expansion itself on its own carries any weight of any season. Which is a similar situation to Season of the Undying or whatever, when we had Shadowkeep, where that season wasn't really rated because Shadowkeep was out. See, not many people had much time to think about it really. So now we're going to swap. This is the final boss. We're going to keep everything the same. We're going to switch to Sentinel Shield just for this initial set of enemies. So you get 2 VIP targets per phase. I'm going to do a barricade behind the boss. We're going to use a grenade to debuff and then a super. Notice Simceps has kicked in with biotic enhancements. It does massive damage. Now my goal is not to clear any of the art. Like, if anything, my goal would be to kill the sniper. I didn't, but I done damage to the both, and they are both weak. If I cleared out the Fallen, he drops riches 10. The timing wouldn't be good because the sniper would still be alive while the riches drop. So my time will be off. So the goal is to do more. If anything, just clear the sniper if you can. The sniper sort of floats about though, it's difficult. And then this is where you want to fight for the majority of it. So we can use blinding nades, we can use our fusion. I'm waiting for the guy with the cannon. We get the guy with the cannon, we can use the cannon for DPS. We can also blind the sniper, you can see. But the main thing is not to be clearing ads while the sniper's alive. So the sniper's there, infinite spawning left and right. Some people have tried to disprove that they're not infinite, but they are in fact infinite. They just keep spawning up and up and up. There's a timer in between that though. So say you clear ads on whatever side, whatever time it is, I couldn't tell you, but say it's 30-40 seconds, you'll get another wave, and then another wave. That's just sort of how it works. So they are infinite spawning. So you just have to be aware of that, but you can take advantage of that by farming ammo. That's why I think they are infinite spawning, is because it's a chance for ammo. If there wasn't infinite ads, you would run out of ammo so fast you wouldn't have enough ammo for damage on the boss. So they have to make them infinite, which I agree with. It's just sort of how it is. So we've took out the sniper, we just need to take out the Marauder, or whatever he's called. I can actually go over there and use Lament if I want. I'm just going to finish off this cannon. Max charge that cannon shot to get max damage, 44k, that actually killed him. Now this is where you need to pay attention to your HP health while getting these motes, these riches. So I'm actually getting wrecked here, so I'm going to back up a little bit. The boss is teleported. So that's high recover. Having the high recover will help me out there. That's why I always recommend using high recovery stat in dungeons. Notice when I got the 10 riches, I got my super, obviously I used that just to be safe. The boss teleports round you, round the crystal. You need to keep an eye on where he is while you're sitting in a bubble or behind a barricade. Because whatever side he's sitting on, you sit on the opposite side. Whenever you get the exit strategy where you want to go out of there, you go the opposite way of where he's standing, because he could stomp you if you run past him, and he can stomp you off map into the river. That will be a death. Right? If you step your toe in that water, it's a death. So there's a high chance of that happening as well. So don't run past him like that. Always run on the opposite side. If it's left, it's left. If it's right, it's right. If it's beach, then so be it. Just be prepared to take out some ads on that side if there is. So now we're going to start our cannon. So remember, I've just dunked 10 motes, 10 riches. It's 60 riches per phase. So what I'm going to do is do a 10, which I've already done off the Marauder. Then I'm going to do a 40, and then another 10. That will give us our 60. Now I could do a 10 and a 50. I could have done that. It's whatever suits you. It doesn't matter. The goal is the same at the end. it's just a different way of going about it. If you want to do 10, 10, 10, 10, you can do that. If you want to do 20, 20, 20, do it like that. Whichever you want. But what I'm showing you here is how to safely do all riches from one side. Now this side that I'm on here is better than the other side because the riches are less likely to fall off map. Now look, the where you shoot the cannon in, one side is always closed. Now it's either left or right. But the one in the front of the map is never closed. I don't think so, at least. So you can just go between this side and then the front side and keep doing this side of the map. You don't need to go anywhere else. You don't even need to go on the beach. You don't need to go on the other side of the map. It's so safe. So I'm just showing you the safe way of doing it. Not the fastest way of doing it, the safest way, I guess. Well, pop a bubble. That's key that you do that. When you're dunking 40 riches, you want to be popping a bubble for that. Because you're going to get your bubble back anyways. So, we'll just clear out some ads here. We just need to get 10 riches and then we're ready for damage. Make sure again that you have max charge of light. Right, so you have all your stacks. If you don't, you need to farm that up by whatever way you're doing. I'm using powered well maker, which just lends itself to the build. But whatever setup you're using, just make sure you get your charge of light and max sword ammo. Now, as I said, there's infinite adds, so there's no excuse to be farming that up. And it's going to be more consistent that you'll get bricks on the floor because you're using double special. Again, you're handicapping yourself if you use a primary. I know people want to use funnel web in this, and funnel web is amazing in this, but it's going to make you have less heavy. It's just not as good that way. Right, so for damage, make sure that you're at the boss before you actually de-shields. Lead with a grenade, and then you just want to do your Lament combos. Now this boss is different to the Ogre. The reason being is because he's easier to hit with the sword, so you don't need to jump in the air. The ground tracking's good. You're good for that. Certain bosses react differently with the sword. Like a wizard, you can imagine, is different with the sword. You need to jump. If you're fighting a wizard, you need to jump. You need to do the in-air tracking. Whereas ground tracking works for some other bosses. Don't ask why I know that. It's just because I've used Lament a lot. I've used swords in general a lot over the years. So I haven't seen people do that where they do the short hop, but it's never done me wrong. I always use it. The short hop, because that counts you as in air. You're not physically jumping. You just, so whatever platform you're on, it's just pressing jump button once. So for me, it's X. Right, I'm just pressing it. I'm not holding it down or anything like that. Just a short hop, and then I'm in for my combos. And as I said, I don't switch. I don't stick to 2 light, 1 heavy, or 3 light, 1 heavy. I just go with what I feel at the time. It really doesn't matter. What matters is you're hitting all your sword attacks. You're doing your debuff. You've got your loosened blade. You're gonna free phase. Because even if you've done the exact combo for Lament, that is the highest damage. That doesn't mean you're going to 2-cycle. There's no way you're going to 2-cycle this boss. Not solo. So it doesn't really matter what you do as long as you're doing enough damage to get the free cycle. I wouldn't recommend having your damage so bad that you go to 4. Because you really are testing your patience. And the fight's going to be like, what, 40, 45 minutes. Depending on how quick you are with stuff. Some players are quicker than others. Some people like to take their time more. You know, just because you take your time doesn't mean you're worse of a player. It just means that you want that run done, that run. Right? You know, so it's like that. You know, that's a lot of riches to get if it's going to be a 4 phase. So if you are the slower type of player, that's fine. Just make sure that you go for the free phase. And that way, you're less likely to die and stuff, you know, because that's where you see your deaths with people on this, is where on the final phase they fall off map because they're under pressure, or you know they screw something up, or they screw the riches up, because it's really easy to screw that up. So you get a 30-second timer when you get riches. Now By the time you've picked up 10 riches and you go to get another 10, you know, you prep your next 10 with the cannon. If you miss your cannon shot, you're going to be 10 seconds on your riches, which means there's a chance that the riches is going to kill you, because rather than you going for the 10 dunk, you're trying to go for a 20 or a 30 dunk. So if that happens, you need to beeline it for mid. That can wipe people. It's actually, when this dungeon first came out, that did wipe me. I was trying to overcommit for riches and I ended up dying because I went for like 50, 55 riches in one run, and one of my cannon shots didn't hit, and I didn't keep an eye on my timer, and I died because of the riches. That's one thing I can see people dying of quite frequently. The blinding nades will keep you safe, as you can see, between phases. Ads will hit you from left and right. They'll spam grenades. The boss will do his blinding nade on you quite frequently. It's a case of just standing out the blast radius. He has a blast radius. Try and stand outside of the blast radius of his mine. So mages are killed. I use Lament, as you've seen. I even use my bubble. I used a bubble and Lament just to take out the Marauder. Now the Marauder, if you didn't know, if you don't kill him, he goes round and steals riches off the floor, which is a mechanic people aren't aware of. I've actually only seen him do it once. I was on a team run, and we didn't take him out for whatever reason, because we were like speed running it, and we actually saw him. He was stealing all the riches. Steals all the riches from you. So on a solo, you'll be always taking him out anyways, but that's just an interesting mechanic about that. On this side, I always try and spawn kill the ads, because I keep getting my grenade back, so I just save my grenade when they come out of the door like that, when they all drop down. I used to use one grenade to take them all out, because for every 10 riches, it gives you all your ability energy back. Your melee, your class ability, your grenade, your super, everything. That's what makes this dungeon easier than what it would be. If that mechanic wasn't a thing, this dungeon would be significantly harder than what it is. But I kind of like that mechanic's there, because it opens up for build ideas. Because, you know, having you super up that often, you know, imagine with like a Stasis Hunter, for example, or, you know, Tether and stuff. So I do quite like it, even though it does make it a little bit easier. I think they've tried to offset that by making the riches so high, you know, sort of do it like that, but I don't know if they could have changed it and made it 30 riches per phase for solo and then 60 for a team, or even 40. It would have just eased up on the time of this boss, because it's longer than what it needs to be. See, like Prophecy, how that's designed, there's a lot of different rooms, right, in that, and they're all particularly designed with shadows and light and stuff. Such a well designed boss room, and the way you do damage to the boss, but it doesn't punish you. If you want to speed up that fight, if you want to try and solo 2 thirds, which you can, and I've done a Prophecy video of recently, then you can, because the time's forgiven, man. This particular boss fight, the time is not forgiven. 30 seconds isn't enough time. It's a bit unforgiving. Now with Particle Deconstruction, that mod offset that. You know, it meant that you could sort of do, you know, more damage and stuff, but once that mod was removed, it did make this dungeon, the meta of the dungeon, people are still confused on what to run for it. You know, do I run Sleep, do I run Galahorn? You know, I've tried Parasite. Parasite's actually terrible. It's a don't try Parasite in this. This is phase 2. Same thing. None of the ads will kill us, obviously, because of health regen off Lament. The boss will stomp us, but we can easily survive that. Notice the damage. We're doing massive damage here. We want to get him to a 3rd or below. I've still got Keen, I've still got Charge of Light. And that's below a 3rd, so I'm super happy with the damage. Now all we need to do is commit to the end. I've still got a super, so I'm going to actually use that in a minute. I'll use that on the Marauder like I did before, just to easily take him out. It's the sniper that all I really need to do now is take out the sniper, I've got bricks on the floor for next final phase. I've got plenty of special. So you can see ammo's really good on this because you're using your melee, you know, 80% of the time. Your sword is never used. You notice I've never used my sword on any ad in this dungeon, I don't think. Apart from the Marauder. The sword is just there for damage. The fusion and the ignition code are for ad clear, and your melee is for ad clear as well. So it means that it's super efficient on ammo, and you can see that I'm not struggling to get sword ammo. There's only one point when I was on the Ogre fight where I was really worried about my sword ammo, but I got the bricks in the end. So if I was running a primary, it wouldn't be as good as this for ammo wise. We're going to do damage to this sniper with our cannon. If you duck on this brick, on this on this, whatever you call it, on this cabin, he can't really snipe us. Try to get a nade on, the Marauder strafed out of it, unfortunately. That's okay though. Sniper's literally one shot at that. We can use a bit of Cartesian though. I've got plenty of ammo, so I'll come to this little bit of cover here, and then just use this. Purple weapon on this fusion will help out. That's the sniper taken out, so that's the first thing dealt with. Now I just need to take out the Marauder. I need some heavy though, which I saw some heavy earlier on. I need charge with light. I need stacks. I've only got one stack charge of light here. So I'm max on heavy now, just like that. So I'll go over here. I'll try and confront him first, so he headbutts me like that. And then he's in my bubble and I'm safe. He's backed out though, this isn't safe, so I'm backing up. A heavy attack missed for some reason. I'm not 100% why that was. Again, the ground track, and sometimes it just doesn't work. This is what I was on about with it. You know, it can be inconsistent, but with the in-air, it's not. Just depends on what you're fighting. See, that Marauder, they strafe a lot, they go invis and all that stuff. It sort of messes with the tracking. Wizards are the same. Floating targets, it just messes with it. So I've got no stacks charge of light, so I need to farm that up, which I'm going to do so. And I'm going to get my heavy brick. So now we're max. We're ready for boss damage basically. Let's say get a couple more stacks with light. But yeah, I do think this setup for all three classes probably with Lament is now the best setup for the solo grasp. Just because it gives you enough damage, it allows you to free phase all bosses. Whereas last season it was like 2 phase. We've now went from like 2 phase to 3 phase. But at least it's not 4. You know, because 4 is a hell of a trek. And you will lose your patience on it. So at least with this setup, it's really good for ammo, good for staying alive. It's really hard to die on this class, if I'm being honest. It's very good with Echo of Legion. The reason why Echo of Legion isn't getting used by many people is because the Bastion build, which Bastion build is very good. But for this dungeon in particular, because of the playstyle of the dungeon, it's all focused on ag clear and stuff. Don't need Bastion. Symphoseps plus Echo of Legion will give us all our health regen that we need. Lament will do all our damage that we need. Bubble safety more than anything. Loosen blades, your damage bonus. And it's pretty simple at that. Make sure you're on an even number after every phase, because if you get one more less, one riches less, you're going to have to do another. So say you're on 59 riches, you need to do another phase of riches just to get that one. Now that can happen if the riches fall off map. Now we're 40, so we've already dunked 10. Notice where the boss was. If I'd went close to the boss, he would have stomped us off map. So always keep an eye on that boss at all times. So just check where he's teleporting to, and you go the opposite way. If unsure, just go to where his cabin is at the back of the map. That's always safe. Okay, we've dunked our riches. That's good. We just need 10 more. I think I actually do miss a moat here. I think what I've just said actually happens. So you're going to see here, I have to do 2 sets. Because I end up getting 9 riches. Make sure your Lament's charged as well. That's a common schoolboy error that people do. They forgot to let their heavy recharge charge up on their Lament. Make sure that's always fully charged when you start damage. Okay, you lose so much damage if you don't do simple things like that. So we got 9, look. The riches is in a dangerous place, so I have to redo it. So that what you just seen there happens so common on the other side. Now it's very rare that it happens on this side, but it just has. So look, I'm having to do a go. Now look at my debuff. I'm 9 seconds in. If I'd missed my cannon shot there, it would have been a death. So you can see now what I'm going on about with the riches, where if you've missed that shot, forget about what you're doing and just dunk, because you will wipe to riches if you don't. I didn't miss my cannon shot, but I'm just saying if I did, that would have been game over. So now this is the final phase of damage. We're rinse and repeat, same thing as what we've been doing all day. We start with our debuff at the very start, and just keep obviously swinging. There's no cadence to what I'm doing, light swings or heavy. Just make sure that all my shots, all my swings are hitting. That was the solo flawless on this dungeon. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.